Okay, let's talk about something huge, something that affects pretty much every single website you visit, JavaScript. We're going to dive into a really powerful new idea called islands, and it promises to fix some of the most frustrating problems on the web today. But first, let me ask you something. Have you ever loaded a web page? You can see everything on the screen, it looks perfect, but when you go to click a button or even just try to scroll, nothing. It's just frozen. For a couple of seconds, the site looks alive, but it's not. So why on earth does this keep happening? Well, the answer lies in something that developers have started calling the uncanny valley of the web. And it really gets to the heart of the problem with how we've been building websites for the past decade or so. So what's actually going on here? This uncanny valley? It's a side effect of the way most modern sites are built, using what's called a single-page application, or SPA. The page looks like it's ready to go, but behind the scenes, your browser is working like crazy, trying to download and process its brain, basically. All the visual stuff is there, but the smarts, the interactivity, just hasn't arrived yet. The technical name for the process causing this frozen feeling is hydration. Your browser gets a simple, static skeleton of the site, but then it has to download this massive file of JavaScript to actually bring that skeleton to life. And until that entire bundle is downloaded, parsed, and executed, the site is basically just a pretty painting. You can look, but you can't touch. And that delay is what absolutely tanks key performance scores like time to interactive. So how do we get out of this uncanny valley? Well, the answer isn't some small fix. It's a totally new way of thinking. Instead of building on a giant sea of JavaScript, developers are starting to find solid ground by building on, well, islands. And yep, that new philosophy has a name, the islands architecture. This term was first coined by Katie Sylor-Miller, who's a front-end architect over at Etsy, and it describes this really powerful new way of thinking about web performance. The difference between the old way and the new way is just night and day. Think of the old model, the SPA, as sending one giant, super complex machine to your browser and just hoping it can assemble it and figure it all out. The islands architecture is totally different. It starts with a super fast, simple HTML page, and then it sends these little independent islands of interactivity only where they're absolutely necessary. And listen, this isn't just some niched theory. It's a real movement that's gaining a ton of steam. You've got frameworks like Astro that are leading the charge with a zero JavaScript by default approach. But you're also seeing big players like eBay's Marco framework and other popular tools like Eleventy adopting this pattern. The developer community is really getting behind this. Okay, so if that old all-or-nothing style of hydration was the problem, how does this new model actually fix it? What's the secret sauce that makes these islands work so well? Turns out, it's all about a newer, much smarter kind of hydration. Now, this is a really important point. The whole idea behind the islands architecture isn't about getting rid of JavaScript completely. Not at all. It's about being incredibly smart and deliberate about how, and more importantly, when we use it. The goal here is smarter hydration, not zero hydration. The first piece of this puzzle is something called partial hydration. This answers the question of what on the page actually needs to be interactive. With this approach, everything on the page is just plain old static HTML by default. Only the things you specifically mark as an island, like an image slider or a complex search bar, will ever get their JavaScript sent to the browser. The header, the footer, all that static text, it just stays as simple, lightning-fast HTML. The second piece of the magic is progressive hydration, and this answers the question of when that interactivity shows up. Instead of loading and running all the JavaScript the second the page appears, we can be really strategic about it. We can wait until the perfect moment to load the code for each little island, making sure we never block you, the user, from using the site. And this is where things get really, really cool for developers. They get this amazing level of control. They can say, okay, load this critical navigation menu immediately, or wait until the browser has a free moment for this less important widget. And my personal favorite is Client Visible. It waits to load something, say a YouTube video player, until you actually scroll down and it enters the screen. I mean, why would you load all that heavy code for something the user might never even see? It's an absolute game changer. So when you zoom out, what does this all really mean for the web? It might feel like this brand new, cutting-edge idea, but in a lot of ways, this big shift is actually a return to some of the web's original foundational principles. You can think of the history of web development kind of like a giant pendulum. Back in the early days, servers did all the work, sending fully formed HTML pages.
Then, around the 2010s, the pendulum swung all the way to the other side, and the browser on your computer started doing all the heavy lifting. Now, with the islands architecture, that pendulum is finally settling right in the middle, giving us a balanced, hybrid approach that really takes the best from both worlds.
So, yeah, this isn't about going back to the dial-up days of the 90s. It's more like a return to those solid first principles, but now we're bringing all of the powerful modern tools we've built over the last 2 decades with us. It's about combining that old school wisdom of building on a solid HTML foundation with the power of modern web development. And honestly, the data really seals the deal. When you look at the key performance numbers, the Islands approach just shines. You get the crazy fast initial load times of a static site, but, and this is the important part, you also get a super fast, tunable time to interactive, all because that initial JavaScript payload is so tiny. It basically gets an A+ across the board. Okay, so this stuff is obviously great for web developers, but what does it actually mean for the rest of us? Why should you care about this stuff? What's the bigger, real-world impact of this shift?
Well, for you, the user, the answer is simple. It means faster, more reliable websites that just work, especially if you're on a slower network or an older phone. For developers, it's a refreshing return to a simpler, more robust HTML-first way of thinking. And for the internet itself, this model is a perfect match for modern infrastructure like edge computing, which lets sites be served to you incredibly fast from a server that's physically close to you.
And all of this leaves us with one final, pretty big question. For the last 10 years, the single-page application has been treated as the default, the one-size-fits-all solution for building on the web. But with the rise of islands, you have to start asking, is that era finally coming to an end in favor of a faster, more resilient, and frankly, more user-friendly web? It's definitely something to think about.